Hey guys, this is Elena Seungeun Lee from We Learn to Share. Welcome to the video of AP US Government. In this video, we're going to learn about the foundational documents of the United States and the pivotal Constitutional Convention. So let's dive together into this intriguing part of American history. First, let's talk about the Declaration of Independence, a cornerstone document in our American history. So it was drafted in July 4, 1776 and was signed in August 2nd, 1776. And the declaration functioned as a response to the British colonial policy, and it served as a national congress for these kind of responses. And the writers are called the founding fathers, including Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Roger Sherman, and Robert Livingston. The purpose of this, they sought to justify the revolution, right, and to gain foreign assistance, especially from France, for the American Revolution. Had a philosophical basis on John Locke's philosophy. It emphasized unalienable rights and the concept of governments deriving power from the content of the governed. The document listed grievances like taxation without representation and the forced quartering of British soldiers. Yet, it had its limitations because it failed to address the rights of the slaves, women, and native people. And then, let's look at the Articles of Confederation, which is America's first constitution. So basically, this was formed in 1777. This document established a league of friendship among the 13 states. It was a unicameral legislature with limited powers. It could declare war and make treaties, but couldn't draft soldiers or collect taxes. So you can see that the federal government power was really weak, right? And this was basically because if most authority rests within the federal government, then the new nation's leaders feared that a strong central government would become tyrannical as British rule. Hence, there was no president, no national court, and as you can see, they cannot draft soldiers, collect taxes, regular commerce, etc. Everything was left on the local and the state level, right? There was no executive, national maritime judiciary only. States established only their courts, not a federal court. Hence, but even though there were these kind of limitations, still there were successes that were made under the government of the Articles of Confederation. And it was basically like Treaty of Paris, Land Ordinance Treaty, and the Northwest Ordinance Treaty. These were kind of some of the highlights that is picked within the evaluated success of the government under the Articles of Confederation. And the legislative process over here required unanimous consent for amendments, which made it really hard for any changes in the Constitution, and also it needs supermajority for laws. However, we have its weaknesses highlighted by events like Shays Rebellion. This is very important because it kind of showed that this government under Articles of Confederation is so weak. Basically, Shays' rebellion was led by former Patriot soldier Daniel Shays, who organized a group of angry Massachusetts farmers attempting to forestall foreclosure of their lands, but the revolt failed. And this basically showed the government under Articles of Confederation, they were too weak to stop it as soon as possible. Hence, this Shays' rebellion led to a voice within the United States that called for a bolster, right? Called for enforcement or called for change in the constitution that will make their federal government more stronger. And hence, this led to 1787, the Constitutional Convention, which was held to address these issues. So 55 delegates, except from Rhode Island, gathered with the initial goal to amend the articles. And however, they decided to draft a new constitution at the end. And the new government structure would be a republic with three branches, the executive branch, legislative branch, and judicial branch, which would have checks and balances. And the convention saw significant compromises. The Great Compromise, or the Connecticut Compromise, led to a bicameral legislature with representation based on population in lower house and equal representation in upper house. Basically, this was something that had ended up from two different plans that were proposed. First is the Virginia plan, which proposed for a bicameral legislature based solely on population. And in this case, large states with large populations or big populations like Virginia would stand for it. But for the cases of smaller states, it will be unfair because they would have less representatives in the legislature because of their small population. So there were another plan called New Jersey Plan, which called for a unicameral plan, holding that every state, regardless of the size or regardless of the population, would all get one vote each, so equal. And then the Congress had basically added these two different plans into one, into the Great Connecticut Compromise, in which they would have a bicameral legislature. And you can see how the original plan is being reflected within the lower house because they're solely based on population. And the New Jersey plan is reflected in the upper house because it is operated with equal representation, with all of them having two people from each state. Okay. And then we also had the 3/5 compromise, which counted slaves as 3/5 of a person for representation taxation. Again, there were two different opinions or plans that rose within before this was determined. So the southern states wanted slaves to be counted for representation but not taxation, while the northern states wanted slaves counted for taxation but not for representation. And this is basically because southern states mostly had, plantation farming and stuff, so they had wide use of slaves, and hence they wanted them to be counted for representation so that they will be counted as part of the population, and hence there will be more people, representatives that they can send to the parliament. But they didn't want taxation because they didn't want more tax to be paid, or they didn't want to pay more tax to the federal government. And then everything was the exact opposite for the northern states, right? And hence, adding these two, each state would count 3/5 of its state population for purposes of determining both representation and taxation. This is a 3/5 compromise. And then we also have the Commerce and Slave Trade Compromise, which prohibited taxing state exports and banning slave trade for 20 years. And then we have, additionally, the Electoral College system, which was established for presidential elections, and Congress was empowered to tax, regulate commerce, and create a national currency. Yeah. And then state powers were limited, including prohibitions on coining money and regulating interstate commerce. Hence, you can see how the Congress and the federal government really gained more power compared to the government under the Articles of Confederation. So, these foundational documents and the Constitutional Convention shaped the United States as we know it today. They reflect both the ideals and the complexities of the early American Republic. So, thanks for joining me on this historical deep dive on the AP-US government. Remember to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Until next time, keep exploring history, and thank you for watching my video. Bye!